All right, there we go.
Hey,
Figured it out, slowly but
cool.
surely.
Awesome.
Um, Thanks for joining me. So, for those who don't know me, I am Dr. Nick of Achieve Physical Therapy in New Jersey, and I'm here with Amanda, who is a nutritionist, and she can introduce herself for those people that don't know her, either of her followers.
Hey guys, my name's Amanda. I am a functional nutrition coach and personal trainer. My name is Understate Fit, and I do everything remotely. So I'm an online nutrition coach.
Nice. So me and Amanda have known each other for probably like 3 years now, actually.
Been a while.
And just connected possibly because we used to go to the same gym. She taught at a gym as well that I teach at as well. So we kind of got connected. And then we always talk about nutrition and go back and forth between she has PT questions, I have nutrition questions,
I have
and
a
things
lot of
like
PT questions.
that. It's fun. So we answer each other's questions, but realistically, why we're going live is because we want to talk about how important, obviously, you guys all know nutrition is, and it's been said over and over again how important nutrition is. But you may not consider yourself an athlete. Some people, their definition of an athlete is someone who competes in something. So they're striving for something, or like they have, let's say, a competition 4 weeks away, and that person, they may consider themselves an actual athlete. So what we are saying, though, is just because you may not consider yourself an athlete does not mean you're not training like an athlete. So that's why we want to discuss if you're training like an athlete, someone who is actually going to compete in something, but you have no plans to compete, then you still should be, your nutrition should still be just like an athlete's would be.
Right. I see a ton of this because I think that like fitness has just boomed over the past 10 years and everyone's into something now. Like you either have Orange Theory at 45, strength training, CrossFit, biking, everyone's into something. And what we don't realize is like a lot of us are training at high intensity, high frequency, and we're not actually eating to match that. And we hear like, oh, what athletes do. And we're like, oh, we're not an athlete. But if you're training like that and you're training all the time, you likely need to fuel for that as well. So that's kind of where we're getting at here.
Yeah. And so we're going to come at it from, Amanda's going to take the nutrition aspect of it, but more or less from my standpoint of how important it is because of if you're not feeding your body well is the best way I could phrase it. If you're not fueled enough and you keep pushing yourself to your limits as much as possible, eventually something may break down. Now, don't get me wrong, things happen all the time. You could be the best, you could have the nutrition on point, your sleep recovery is on point, everything's on point, and things just happen. That's true, but like you can also do things to help mitigate or help yourself not experience any type of setback or injury or things like that,
Right.
where nutrition can take a huge factor.
Right, exactly. And if you're training like that, like it depends. I mean, I think I see a lot of it happen when people are training for body comp results and when they really enjoy something. Because if they really enjoy it, they're usually doing a lot of it. And then if they have body comp goals on top of that, they're like, okay, I just won't eat as much. But you run into an issue with that because usually that leads to long-term dieting. And when we actually look at what strategic dieting looks like, we're in and out of a dieting phase as fast as possible, right? We don't want to spend any more time than we need to in a calorie deficit. What we want is to build the metabolic capacity to be able to train at that maintenance intake, maintain our weight, and then we can go into dieting periods from there, healthy dieting periods where we're actually able to keep it off. Again, what I commonly see is people are just always in that calorie deficit and training at these high intensities. It causes a lot of issues, not only hormones and gut and resistance to weight loss, but also, like you said, it can, if we're not getting enough nutrients, it can lead to musculoskeletal problems as well.
Mm-hmm. So that's why it's so important to make sure your nutrition is on point. And just know that, like, the main point we're trying to drive home is just because you may not consider yourself an athlete per se, if you are training like one because of high intensity workouts, everyone wants to get their ass kicked. Everyone wants a good workout. Don't get me wrong. I love a good workout. I love
You just have to
get
match that. Yeah.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't, then you're not serving yourself the way you could. And
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those things that I'm sure Amanda's seen it.
Totally.
When I was training, I saw it a lot where your expenditure of calories and energy is so high, but you're not taking in enough, and you're kind of lost of like, well, I should
Very
in theory
stressful.
be losing weight.
Yeah, it's
you
very
know?
stressful on the body. We have to remember that stress can come from many different areas. It's not just perceived stress, right? Stress can be from dieting, not having enough calories to fully function at optimal levels. That's stressful on the body. Overtraining, stressful on the body, right? Couple those two things, very stressful. When we add perceived stress on top of that, it can create, a multitude of symptoms. So we just have to remember that stress can come from many different areas. And if you're training like an athlete, but you're not recovering like one, if you think about an athlete and what they do, they are sleeping, they are eating, they are going to therapy, they are going to, sauna, they're going to yoga, like they're doing all these different things with what, like, even though they have those, games or competitions or whatever it might be, like they are matching that with how they recover. And this is, again, something I see all the time with people. We don't match what we're doing with recovery. We're so go, go, go all the time. That's just our culture. And then we add these hard workouts on top of that. It's great. Don't get me wrong. Like you said, I love getting my ass kicked too. But I now know how to match that with my food. And again, if you add body comp into that too, then like if you're able to match that, you're also going to get way more body comp results and sustainable ones at that. Because again, that's another huge issue I see as people do, they train like this, they see a lot of great results and they want to continue with that, but then they get hurt, right? So they can't continue, or like they keep pushing themselves and they stop responding to weight loss. Like they hit a plateau and they're like, what's going on? This is the reason, right? Like, because we're not doing it strategically. We're kind of just burning ourselves, burning the candle at both ends.
Yeah. Now, in your opinion, what is the most common thing that causes people to pretty much hit that plateau? Where, like, especially because you're talking more about body comp, and for people that don't know what she means by body comp, it just, when you're trying to, and correct me if I'm wrong, lose weight in a deficit, not too fast, anything like that, but you're trying to kind of recomp your body, meaning just lose body fat. You're not actually changing, like, looking differently and stuff. You're leaning out. That's what she means by body comp.
Yeah, I mean, body comp, like if you're just talking about body composition in general, like you're just looking for a more optimal one most of the time, less fat, more muscle. That's what people want.
Yeah.
And again, even with athletes, like they want performance too. So a common thing that you see with both athlete performance and with body comp results is not fueling appropriately. And that's something that holds a lot of people back because, they're not doing it in a strategic way. Does that answer your question?
No, it does. Yeah. So as you can see, like, I think we all have this, and like I said, Amanda deals with this probably a lot more than I do. I educate where I can and then refer to people like Amanda and other nutrition coaches for this reason, because it can be hard to find that good balance, we'll say, because we all do want to look a certain way sometimes. We all want to feel confident in our own skin, but we also want to train and hit big numbers and set PRs and max out, do all these fun things. So we have to find that good balance.
Yeah,
now,
it's all possible. It just might not be all possible at the same time.
Okay.
Because, again, that kind of opens the door to, if we're tying in like performance and body comp, when you're in a fat loss phase, are you necessarily training at your best? Are you performing at your best? Probably not. You're probably performing at your best when you're eating at your maintenance calories. Again, if you're an athlete, you're probably going to want to be at your maintenance calories a bigger portion of the time. But, sometimes there's that trade-off there and you just can't have everything at once, but we can definitely reach those goals, right? It's just, can we do it all at the same time? You have to be careful of that.
And especially for my clientele, more of the bodybuilders, powerlifters, you see that too in the powerlifting community, or even bodybuilding, when you're getting ready for a show and you're leaning out, or you're getting ready for the platform and you're cutting down and you're in a small deficit, you may notice you don't feel as strong.
Right.
So I 100% see it in a different way,
right,
as well. If you maybe have to prioritize certain things at a certain time to reach your max potential.
Yeah, and it's not to say to like back off of training during a fat loss phase at all. It's just like you might not perform as well.
Yeah. And that's the whole mental component that is tough, because we want to be able to hit all of our PRs, we'll say, hit everything, our workouts fine, and then also get the body comp we want. And it's a very hard balance to have.
But that's where strategic dieting is so awesome, because you're spending most of your time in your maintenance, and then you're spending very short periods of time in fat loss. And once you respond, you pull back up to maintenance intake, and that's where that flexibility comes in, and that's why I can, again, like one of the, I tie in between like having a healthy relationship with food and also reaching your body comp results,
Hmm.
because part of having a healthy relationship with food is being able to fuel yourself for things that you love. Um, and then also like getting those body comp results is actually understanding how to, you know, climb into your maintenance and then hit that dieting phase and get out of it as fast as possible, so that you can have food freedom most of the time and you're not restricting all year long. Because again,
Hmm.
pointing back to that conversation of like people are just so used to running themselves into the ground and
Yeah.
restricting all the time, we run into these issues with both performance and body comp.
And so earlier on, Amanda talked about external stressors and stuff like that, where we are all athletes at the end of the day. Like I said, we either could define ourselves as athletes or train like an athlete. But at the same time, we have to remember, if you are doing those things and training that way, you're going to have to try to limit your external factors, external stressors as best you can. And it's very hard to
Mm-hmm.
do that because we all have jobs, we all have other things we need to do, relationships, all these other things. So don't make your life harder than it has to be when you have fitness goals
Right.
by stressing yourself out by not sleeping well, not recovering enough, not eating well. Because if you're not eating well, those stressors you can control. So
Yeah.
why not control them as best as possible instead of,
Yeah.
you know,
And
stressing
it's
yourself out
funny,
one way and then the other
those are
way.
usually the ones that people have the most trouble with. You know, like people have no problem going into caloric deficit, but then as soon
Mhm.
as I tell them like, oh, what about sleep, right? Or like, what about recovery? What about like taking a break? Like sometimes those are really hard because they also challenge like the beliefs of the person and like what, you know, they
Mhm.
enjoy doing, because a lot of people love working out 24/7, but is that always ideal for performance and body recomp? Probably not.
Yeah.
Again, we have to make sure that we're recovering appropriately.
Hmm. And that's where I think, and men can touch on this as well, is that little factor of if you're doing too much, and we're going to briefly just go over like hormone things and how it can affect your hormones
Mm-hmm.
because of if you are doing too much and you're not recovering. So like I say it all the time, Amanda says it because I know she does. Less is more,
It's true.
especially when it comes
It's a
with.
really hard lesson for me to learn, but yeah.
Yes, yes, we all struggle with it. There was the time when I was training 7 days a week and things like that, where you're just going, 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 going. But less is more, unless you're prepping for, obviously, if you have a specific goal, you're prepping for something, there may be times where you need to do a little bit more. But for the most part, when you're
Of course.
just in off season or you're just trying to hit regular goals, less is a little bit more sometimes because you don't need to overdo it. Because if you
Right. And you're a
overdo it,
bodybuilder, you know. Yeah. You've
yeah,
been there. Yeah.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
You overdo things, it's just your body does not react well. So, and then I never knew about the whole hormone aspect of it until I met Amanda realistically, and how that actually takes an effect of not eating enough and overtraining,
Yeah.
how your
I
hormones get all messed up.
Yeah, of course. I mean, when you're, again, it's the stress, right? Cortisol has a big impact. That's your stress hormone, has a big impact on hormone production, right? We see ties to the thyroid, we see ties to sex hormones, all things that have a direct relationship on your metabolism. You know, when we're not eating enough, again, it's a stressor. It doesn't have to be perceived stress. Like I always ask people, well, what's stressing you out, right? And they're trying to think of things in their life like, oh, this was stressful at work or this was stressful at school. And I'm like, okay, but we also have to recognize that not eating enough and overtraining are stressors too. And again, when we have really high cortisol, especially when it's, chronically elevated, that can impact hormone production. And if we're impacting hormone production, well, guess what else is impacted? Metabolism. And then we're probably not getting the results that we want. I've seen people come to me with, testosterone levels bottomed out, thyroid, TSH is super high, pointing towards hypothyroidism, things like that, that sometimes can just be reversed with proper training and fuel. You don't even have to complicate things. Like sometimes it's literally just making sure that you're getting enough fuel and you're training appropriately.
Yeah.
And same thing with estrogen too, and estrogen
Hmm.
progesterone, right? It's like same, it's similar to testosterone.
Yeah. So that's what I think it's, well, we need to understand with the hormones too, and then to speak a little bit more towards like people don't always understand that like test is the one we know of, but you have to
Mm-hmm.
remember too with training, you get growth hormone, you get insulin growth factor one, you get these different things with weight training, and so we want to make sure our hormones are always in as good of a balance as we possibly can get them. And like Amanda said, there's sometimes she'll see people that have test levels that are bottomed out, and a lot can be fixed with. And by
Right,
bottomed out, it means like very low. A
right,
lot can be
right.
fixed with nutrition and training because you're just not taking care of yourself the way you should. And then we get in this vicious cycle of, and just, we're not really sure what to do. Let me keep working out more. I keep working out more and more and more and more, and I'm still not losing weight. And then it's like I keep cutting down calories more and more and more, and I'm still not losing weight. And then we get in that balance. And then when you finally actually, and more, and you can speak to it, it's coming out that, and I actually, maybe it's just the people I follow on Instagram and social media and stuff, but it's really showing that a lot more people are being more comfortable with feeding themselves, which is awesome to see.
I agree completely. I think that it's definitely shifting. I think that the knowledge, like, people are just really great about getting that knowledge out there and sharing it. More and more coaches. You know, I wish that was there like 10 years ago, but I'm glad it's there now, because I agree with you.
Yeah. I mean, from my own personal experience of just carb cycling so much when I was bodybuilding and all these things, I learned that I really just never, so everybody's body's different, right, Amanda? Like how they process carbs, fats, and proteins. And something I've learned, and this is my own experience with dieting and going through my own stuff, is I respond very well to carbs. Like, I always feel really, really good if I have a higher percentage carbs than protein or fats in my, even body comp wise. I look better, I feel better.
Well, my body think about what it's doing for you, right? Think about what it's doing for your lifts. Think about how it's bearing your muscle. Again, that brings us, I know we were talking about common myths, and someone was like, I want to know other common myths besides carbs are bad, but we can't even help but touch on this, because you just bring up such a good point, right? Like, we need carbs for strength training. When we don't have them, our muscles getting broken down instead of losing fat sometimes. And what we don't realize is it's not just weight loss that's the goal. It's weight loss with reserving, or like keeping our muscle, not losing our muscle. Because when we lose our muscle, our BMR goes down, and then it becomes harder to maintain that new weight, right? We want to keep the muscle, because muscle's our best friend, longevity-wise and body comp-wise.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm going to agree with that, because I'm a musculoskeletal professional. So obviously, I'm a little biased in that aspect. But yes, muscle is the main thing we want. We want to always generate that. And we don't have to sacrifice muscle for losing weight or getting the physique we need, as long as our nutrition's on point. Right. And then I thought of one common myth, actually, and you probably will be able to answer. I literally I thought of it right now.
Cool.
And so
I'm just reading one. I have to turn my head.
Yeah, I know.
Fats are platinum for bodies over carb.
Yes, yeah, 100%, Gani. But the myth I was going to go with, because that got me aside for a second, is eating at night bad? Like, before, like, do you have to eat a certain time before bed? Because I know this one, and I used to think it, but then again, I used to think it, but I still eat right before I go to bed.
I think what you're getting at is, people used to believe that if you ate too late at night, it would cause more weight gain.
Yes, that's it. And that's
so directly no. But here's the thing with eating a large meal before you go to bed, and why I don't usually recommend it. It's because of the way that it will impact your sleep.
Okay.
And adequate sleep is one of the most important things for weight loss. So if someone's not getting a good night's sleep and they're eating too close to bed for whatever reason, sometimes we'll tweak that. But there's no, like, it's not like, oh, because you eat at this time of the day, you're going to gain weight from it. No, that's not the relationship. The relationship is just really how it affects sleep sometimes. So I think that's kind of where you're getting at with that. There's also research with, like, intermittent fasting. So, looking at research, I don't even know if I want to open up this whole conversation, but there is some research that supports that intermittent fasting, where you're fasting at nighttime versus the morning, leads to more weight loss. So, like, stopping eating 2 to 3, maybe 4 hours before bed, and eating first thing in the morning, versus the other way around.
Okay.
So,
which I personally know my feelings on intermittent fasting. Like I said, that's another lie for another time.
Yeah, that's a whole conversation about
we can go down tangents
if it should be used. Yeah, because
Yeah,
that's another common trap. So maybe we should do another one if people want to hear.
So let's just sum up real quick. In summation, what is the best way to make sure would you say, because there's no one best way because everyone's different, what would you say is one of the best ways to make sure you're fueling appropriately if you are training as an athlete?
So if you're training as an athlete, say you're competing in something, right? And you are like, you're on 6 days a week,
Mm-hmm.
you have a high load, you need to make sure that you are eating at the maintenance level intake for that amount of activity. You can easily find that online.
Mm-hmm.
There's, many calculators out there. We can drop some in maybe the comments when we post this or something like that, just to make a resource. But I would say make sure you are eating appropriately, eating enough,
Mm-hmm.
and you're getting enough protein and carbs to truly support the activity that you're doing, eating them around your workouts, right? So like the pre-workout, carbs,
Mm-hmm.
protein, post-workout, carbs, protein, make sure you're replenishing the glycogen stores, make sure you're helping your muscles recover with more protein and build, that sort of thing. But I would say definitely make sure you're eating enough.
Nice. Perfect. Yeah. And that's the summation of the whole thing is just make sure you're eating enough. Like Amanda said, there's a bunch of calculators. When we post this, I will get it onto YouTube probably in a day or so, and then we'll put some links in there for you to help find some calculators if you need to know your macros and make sure you're at maintenance, because the worst thing you want to do is find out that you just were your own worst enemy, we'll say. Like,
right,
you weren't sleeping enough, you weren't eating enough, and that's why
performance is down or body control. Exactly.
Yeah.
There was one other thing too. I just had a question. I got a question on protein powder.
Yeah.
Just different types and how I feel about it. I think protein powder can be a really great tool when it comes to actually recommending a type. There's a lot of great companies out there now. I feel like there's more and more. So it kind of, I never like to say, here, use this one, because it's also a taste preference. Some people like certain ones while some people don't like other ones. But I would say when you're looking at ingredients, make sure that you're, I would say the biggest thing is just the added sugar and the artificial sweeteners that could be in there.
Nice. Yeah.
But yeah, there are definitely great protein powders out there, and it's a really great resource, right? Because a lot of times people have trouble getting their protein intake up. They go rely on protein powder, but post-workout might be really helpful.
Yeah, and I use protein powder for that reason. I'm one of those sick people that I see if they actually do make unflavored protein powder.
They do make unflavored, yes.
So, but it tastes like chalk. But if you are kind of like an individual like me that just realizes that you're getting it in for,
some meals aren't always going to be the best.
Yeah, so like if you're doing it for a purpose, and then I also have carb powder as well, so that kind of cuts the unflavored protein powder taste, to be honest. So yeah, we're pretty much done anyway. So that's another option too. If you're struggling, if you notice, like, I'm going to go work out after this live and I have protein powder and carb powder that I'm going to drink as I warm up for my workout and then get into it, and then I'm going to eat a meal right afterwards. So if you're noticing that you struggle to get things in, like Amanda said, protein powder is a good
easy way. You can easily put things in there, right? Like nut butters, flaxseed, chia seeds, spinach, veggies, and you can pack it in there so that it's easier to get down.
Yeah. So awesome. Thanks for everybody for tuned in to this live. We're going to do more because me and Amanda talk all the time about different things and myths and busts and just overall nutrition and fitness stuff we talk about probably every other day just because we're nerds. Yes. So thanks for joining. I'm going to get this up on YouTube as soon as possible. We'll post some links. I'll give more information for my followers about Amanda. If anyone needs I know a lot of people have nutrition coaches, but if anyone needs a nutrition coach, and we'll go from there. So thanks for joining again, and enjoy the rest of your Monday. Thanks, Amanda.
Guys.